Good morning. I have no topic, don't know what I'm going to say, but I'm running late. But anyway, so good morning. Yeah, the Interhuman Project, I think I'll gab on about. Very excited about this. We're getting closer to the right seasoning of spices and the right ingredients to get the right chemical reaction, I think. I don't know, but it's exciting. So I guess I'll go through the whole thing, and this will be a good practice run for developing an elevator pitch, maybe. Elevator pitch, we need that. Okay. So the problem humanity is facing is self-destruction on a number of fronts. And the problem is those mechanisms of self-destruction are so subtle at this point, so removed from the experience of the individual, that they can be shoved off. And in fact, they're so big that the average human being feels like they have no power over whether or not self-destruction happens as a race. Now, I do think it's true, as the psychologist says in Annihilation, the movie, that everyone self-destructs. We don't commit suicide, we commit self-destruction. Nobody commits suicide, we just commit self-destruction. I think that's interesting. It's a very interesting statement. I don't know that it's true that nobody commits suicide, but it's a little too strong of a statement. But that we commit self-destruction, absolutely. That's fascinating to me. That's sin. That's sin right there. That's missing the mark. If the mark is life, and we're missing that mark, that is self-destruction by definition. And, God is life and all that. But anyway, I'm so excited for the other projects I have, I guess I should say. The Towards Christ model. I really am beginning to believe that's going to be a very powerful model as well. But that's an aside. So if we can't do anything, if the average person doesn't feel like they can do anything about the self-destruction of the species, what can we do? Well, we can hope for representatives, both in business and in government, that are intelligent enough and good-hearted enough to do the right thing and save us from self-destruction, right? To make sure the nukes don't go off, to make sure we don't poison our planet to the point where there is a cascade of destruction that wipes out ecosystem after ecosystem, leaving us to, attempt to live our lives in bubbles on the Earth as if the Earth were Mars. That's the funny thing about this trip to Mars thing. If we go to Mars, that's going to be a miserable way to live. You're going to be living in bubbles your entire life up there. And if there's a pop in one of those bubbles, you're going to be like dead or, scrambling to survive again. So it's not a good solution. It's a lot of work for not much return. What we got to do is figure out how to return this planet on the right course, return the human race on this planet to the right course, so we're not living in bubbles here with much the same effect. So how is the Interhuman Project supposed to solve that? Okay. There are a plethora of tools we are trying to assemble. I'll say that they primarily divide into I guess he's not speaking up. They primarily divide into tools of communication and resolution, and into that almost summarizes the whole project right there. Tools of communication and resolution, because there are that's kind of the big problem. How does the average person, with their fears and concerns, gain the momentum to influence representatives in business and government, and not just our government here, because this is a global problem, but governments in Taiwan and China and India, in Russia, how do we influence the entire globe towards the good? How does each individual do that? That sounds crazy, right? Well, with the right tool set, and there has to be several key, very key tools. There is a tool of mutual understanding, communication. I call it the commons. If we can begin building complete and accurate models of each position, each political position, each, how do I say this? Not necessarily political. Sincerely, deeply held paradigm views of the world. It's how we see the world. It's the lenses we see the world through. If we can model those completely and accurately, and if we can instill in each person, and this may be the hardest part, a flexibility to be able to see the other person clearly and without bias, without judgment, to not project upon them the evils they see in the world, but to see them as a fellow human, someone worthy of respect. Then we can begin building a commons, something that all humans have in common by definition, and only that which they have in common. So this could be, normative humans have a head and 2 arms and 2 legs, That's the ridiculous example, but it can also include those personal belief worldviews in the form, and this is very important, of something like Christians believe Jesus rose from the dead, or most Christians believe. We could even say normative in the sense of a quantity of people, although I don't like defining things like that for obvious reasons, right? That amounts to mob rule in some ways. But the way you avoid mob rule, and this is another key element to building complete and accurate paradigms of each worldview by which we can build a commons, you have to be able to rank your ideas. You can't just have any willy-nilly idea floating around out there. You have to be able to have the most informed people on the process of synthesis, of bringing ideas together and finding which ones are correct and true and good, or how to innovate good ideas that are off into good ideas that are not off, if that makes, ideas that miss the mark enough that, if in a short-term trajectory you're going to hit the mark, but in a long-term trajectory you're going to miss it. That's actually a really good analogy. It's a really key one, and I'll have to go back to that. Okay, so I got 1 minute and I'm behind a train, so I guess I'll just keep talking until and I might be late, but that's okay because they forgive me. Thank God for forgiveness, right? Okay, so the other thing, a ranking system. So I've proposed a model on another video of how we can find those people who have most ingeniously learned and innovated our evaluation structure to be those who have the most authority in choosing the paradigm structure. So in other words, there's this huge, you picture a huge mountain of ideas, and they're all jumbled together. They're not solid rock. They're jumbling and they're fighting and they're moving. Little ants are moving the best parts to the top, or trying to. The ones who are observed by the whole as doing the best job through a series of mechanics, not just thumbs up, but who can respond well by the view of all to sustained critique and rebuttal cycles, meaning they are critiqued and they rebut the critique, and they are critiqued and they rebut the critique. And sometimes they accept the criticism and modify their beliefs, right, and their behaviors, because that's part of the paradigm. It has to be if we're all going to work together. Let me. Okay, so that's I'm going to stop there with that because I've made other videos on that, and I'm going to say, what is core? What is core to this paradigm, this overall meta paradigm? It must be the capacity to synthesize and even to compromise. And we have demonized the idea of compromising because we say, oh, you're going to betray your most sincerely held beliefs, your faith, whatever. No, you're not going to, because that is why we have our common, I spoke of understanding every person's paradigm, understanding their sincerely held beliefs, having that kind of flexibility, that kind of respect for others. And through that, building a commons, which is everything everyone has in common and only that. So obviously the child molester is never going to get into the commons. Because, I'm not going to go into the possibility of a world in which everyone starts to think that child molesting is possible, is a good thing. That is we've already lost, like if that's the majority view, we're already dead meat. We need God to come through and either end it or create another revolution. This human paradigm I'm developing, meta paradigm I'm developing, is not going to save us in that case. So it has to be compromise in the form of the commons. Okay, I have to run. Thank you for your time.